created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
Infatuation, a feeling of foolish or obsessively strong love for, admiration for, or interest in someone or something. Strong and unreasoning attachment. Infatuation, from my perspective, describes better the emotion that many people wrongly call the love that Don José had for Carmen. If anything was not, it was love. Don José was not in love for Carmen, it was infatuation. And also, this is not the first time that we have infatuation as the topic of a misconceived love. If you recall the episode where we talk about the very beautiful aria Il Lamento di Federico, we end up finding that Federico is also infatuated by l'Arlésienne or l'Arlesiana in Italiano. And that woman never appears on stage, but we know her by the influence and how she has, in a way, destroyed what Federico once was. And this is, this is also the case of Don José. Don José was a young man who pretty much did what society and his mother expected, who had as a future possible wife Micaela, who matched the type of life he had and what his mother would approve and society would approve as a result. But it turns out that he finds Carmen on his path. From that moment on, Don José starts losing everything he has. Maybe it is not a lot, but he had something. And he starts losing all those pieces of his life one by one. At the end of the opera, Don José has not only lost Carmen herself, his career with the soldiers, the appreciation of Micaela. At the end, he even loses his liberty because he has killed Carmen. Unable to control himself, he has decided to go to confront, to face Carmen with, and he knows very well inside of him, he knows very well that he will not manage to convince her to return with him. So he already has the knife with which he has already premeditated that he is going to kill Carmen. He knows that there is no possible way out for him of moving on without having Carmen by his side. But Carmen has already moved on. Carmen, and I think, or I just mentioned, that in the case of La Arlesiana, and it is going to be from the eyes of Don José and society, that Carmen and La Arlesiana have misguided these men, have sent them to the road of losing everything. But the truth is, if we see it at least from with eyes of the present, is that they did to themselves. Carmen influenced, suggested, but at the end it was for Don José to decide, and he chose his path. So to blame it on Carmen or to blame it on La Arlesiana, as it is in the other opera, it's just unfair. But it works for the purposes of the plot. But this gives us a very clear idea that at the end maybe Don José is not that different to the character that is portrayed in La Arlesiana, the role of Federico. The two of them find themselves unable to move on with their lives unless they have the woman they want by their sides. For Federico is La Arlesiana, and for Don José is Carmen. Even if those two women have moved on with their lives, they are unable to move on. That's why this is not love. This is infatuation, that, as in this definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it is an obsessively strong love for or an unreasoning attachment. That's what we talk about when we talk about Don José. Because in his aria, very well-known aria, the aria that every tenor wants to sing, but not all tenors can, La fleur que tu m'avais jetée is thought as an aria of love, but provided that we have provided or shared the rationale that this is not love but infatuation, we must understand this aria as a description of how much Don José has fooled himself for love of someone that is Carmen. And this aria stands per notes on the score with piano, not too much volume, and il tempo is andantino, which means from a perspective, not from a, let's say from the public's perspective, it's going to be somehow a slow aria. Not many things will happen because Maestro Bizet has chosen to give Don José the time to express his feelings. And to express his feelings, Maestro Bizet has decided that it's going to be andantino, for us a perception of somehow slow. And keeping in mind that Don José is in this infatuation, he has lost, he's not even sure of what he's doing. Don José is singing for most of the aria piano and pianissimo, as we will see in detail ahead. So our first hint that maybe you are listening or you have listened to many tenors singing it the wrong way is if they are singing loud, even forte and fortissimo most of it, it means that they haven't understood not only the character and the psychology of Don José, but also that they have not paid attention to the note of Maestro Bizet telling you, no guy, this is sung piano. So that very well-known melody with which it starts, La fleur que tu m'avais jetée dans ma prison m'était restée. And this, by the way, will take us to one comment that I make often when we speak of arias in French. We know, because we have mentioned it a good number of times in the Cala Centennial program, in the program of the second season with Katia, talking about French pieces, and whenever we talk about French repertoire, we refer to the fact that French is not a language that aligns, or better the other way around, that singing technique, the projection of the voice, does not align with singing, with the singing does not align with the language, sorry. So, which means, in good French, la fleur que tu m'avais jetée. But for singing, some sounds need to be changed so that they can be sung, which doesn't mean that the singers have to add vowels where they are not. And in fact, it is in the first phrase that in French, if you speak French or you study French or you Google French, you will know that the first phrase is La fleur que tu m'avais jetée. The last it's only because the word is in feminine, fleur. That's why jetée takes an at the end. But that doesn't sound. It is just a continuation of jetée. It is not jeteo, and moreover, it is not like many singers, and please forgive me, but 99% of the singers do a horrible sound. La fleur que tu m'avais jetée. Jetée. It is not jetée. It is jetée. Only with a longer sound of jetée. which diminishes only a tone for the continuation of the sound. But it is not jetée. Any singer that says jetée is doing something that is not part of the French language. But putting that apart, because it's going to come up very often, the role of Don José is expected. Remember that he is young. Probably this is his first or his second love, because he's supposed to be in love with Micaela, which he's not. Maybe, for what we know, he's more adhering to the expectation of his mother and society to continue or to be with Micaela, but he doesn't really know what love is. Carried out by this passion, he thinks, and this is key, because the first phrase, La fleur que tu m'avais jetée, makes reference to the first act where Carmen, to call the attention of Don José, has thrown him a flower. And Carmen, with only the intention of calling the attention of the handsome boy, because we know that Carmen is not with Don José just for pity. It's because she says, well, this guy is cute. Why not having him, as I have certainly have had many others. So for her, it's just the liberty of having another man. So she has thrown that flower to Don José. But she doesn't know that what for her was only the act of calling his attention. For Don José, it has meant a lot more. And that's why he starts saying, that flower that you threw at me. If you could change it into English, which of course sounds weird if you wanted to change it. This flower that you threw to me, I kept it still while in the jail. Of course, sounds weird, but those are the words of the translation in English. So that flower that means a lot to me, that flower that you threw at me, I have kept it even when I was in jail, because for having let Carmen escape, he has to fulfill some time in prison. And while in prison, he would still keep looking at that flower. That's what he refers when he says, dans ma prison m'était resté. Again, resté. It is not resteye. This is not jetée. And we will continue with some other samples. So, la fleur que tu m'avais jetée dans ma prison m'était restée. Flétrie et sèche cette fleur. Gardez toujours sa douce odeur. Because this flower that I kept even in prison, that flower that she threw at me and that I have kept, it is already death. It is dry. This flower is already dry, but it still keeps that sweet perfume. That sweet perfume, it still exhales. That's how he describes this flower. So you can see that from the very first four phrases, Don José is really captivated by this act of the flower. This flower, la fleur que tu m'avais jetée, dans ma prison m'était restée, flétrie et sèche cette fleur, gardez toujours sa douce odeur. Et pendant des heures entières. And I wanted to remark this because after these four phrases were not so many changes in the height of the notes. The highest note so far that has been asked to the tenor has been an F. So perfectly manageable, and he has not gone that low. Even though a couple of notes are of the lower register, it is not that it's going to sound as a bass, which makes us know that he's singing with passion, but he's not super carried away with passion. So no need for exaggeration. La fleur que tu m'avais jetée. No need for that. Dans ma prison m'était resté. No exaggerated. Flétrie et sèche. No exaggeration. Gardez toujours sa douceur. No exaggeration. Gardez toujours sa douceur. And we were coming, I was sharing with you, we were coming from Andantino, which for the perception of the public is kind of slow. And even though the tempo has not changed, now Maestro Bizet has added many more syllables, words, and phrases in the same time, which means that we are perceiving that it is accelerating. And it is accelerating because after the first part, where he has described his emotions and how he feels about that flower that has remained with him and that reminds him of Carmen, now he says, Et pendant des heures entières, sur mes yeux fermant mes paupières, de cette odeur je m'enivre. Et dans la nuit, je te voyais. It is very interesting because we are coming from a count timing. La fleur que tu m'avais jetée dans ma prison m'était restée flétrie et sèche. Cette fleur gardait toujours sa douceur. But now we're moving faster. Et pendant des heures entières, sur mes yeux, fermant mes paupières, de cette odeur je m'enivre. And for the first time, this is a much higher note, but immediately goes back in control. Et dans la nuit, je te voyais, which somehow tells us that what Don José has inside is a storm of emotions provoked by the infatuation that he has for Carmen, because he starts building it slow. La fleur que tu m'avais jetée dans ma prison m'était restée flétrie et sèche, etc. But now, et pendant des heures entières, but for long complete hours, on my eyes and closing my lids, de cette odeur je m'enivrais. He's describing now the scene in prison. He has just told us that the flower, even if dry, has kept this fragrance. But now, during complete hours, and on my eyes, while closing my lids, this fragrance, this perfume made me feel enivré, makes reference, je m'enivrais, is in fact the word or the expression for feeling drunk. So Don José is telling us that he was not just observing and smelling the flower. He would, for complete hours, close his eyes and feeling like a drunk man by the sole presence of the fragrance of this flower that was touched by Carmen. Dear Lord, this is the expression of a man who is suffering of a tremendous infatuation. You may think that it is well too romantic, but this is excessive. They don't even have a story themselves. They have not lived together for months or for years. They just had crossed their roads for very shortly. How can he speak like that of that flower. So sur mes yeux fermant mes paupières, de cette odeur je m'enivrais. And even though Maestro Bizet has not put piano there, we know that this is a sensation, but now there are changes, because by adding more syllables, we feel the drama building up. But Maestro Bizet does not want this drama to be out of control. Sur mes yeux fermant mes paupières, because fermant mes paupières, he's asked for a small emphasis on the syllable fermant mes paupières, but diminish immediately, which means don't get carried away too much. Of course, friends, tenors exaggerate and do it full volume. Ce monsieur fermant mes paupières, de cette odeur je m'enivre. But it is too much. The aria and the style of Bizet is constructed differently. The whole dynamics of this part are carried away by the note following what is written. Sur mes yeux fermant mes paupières, de cette odeur je m'enivre. Et dans la nuit, je la voyais, je me prenais. And now also, it starts with a piano, which again is a note for the tenor. Hey, 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 don't overdo anything, don't exaggerate. But now, Maestro Bizet has said, poco animato, ma poco, which means, man, don't exaggerate. So, dans la nuit, je te voyais, je me prenais à te maudire, à te détester, à me dire, pourquoi faut-il que le destin, again, reminding us with a piano. This complete phrase starts with a piano, and the following one will have a piano, because otherwise the emotion overfloods everything, and that is not what is happening here. Don Jose is starting slow, then rushes us in telling us what happens in jail when he feels completely drunk by the fragrance of the flower, and he says, et dans la nuit, je te voyais, je me prenais à te maudire. It says, because at nights I saw you. Of course, it is an illusion. He's being delusional. He thinks that at nights he can see Carmen. Et dans la nuit, je te voyais. Because he comes from faster. Ce monsieur ferma mes paupières, de cette heure je m'enivrais, et dans la nuit, and starts getting slow. Et dans la nuit, je te voyais. Now that he has reached the part where he talks about Carmen, this explicit, he's going back to slow and calm. Je te voyais, je me prenais à te maudire, and then I began to curse your name. Poco animato. I began to curse your name, because he knows that the memory of Carmen is pursuing him. À te détester, à me dire, pourquoi faut-il que le destin l'ait mise là sur mon chemin? Because when I start cursing your name, à te détester, to detest you, and to exclaim, to shout out loud, why was it that you had to cross my way? This expression makes us know that Don Jose is not comfortable about that. He loves Carmen, or he feels this infatuation for Carmen, but deep inside himself, he's not happy with that, because I start cursing you, Carmen, to detest you, and to exclaim, why is it that you cross my road? That's what Don Jose says. But still, even if it is hard, Maestro Bizet has given us some variations. At no time he has expressed forte or fortissimo. The tenor is not expected to do it out loud continuously. That goes against the dynamics of this aria. Pourquoi faut-il que la destin life is alive? By the way, there are several tenors who in this que la destin is not written, it's not really a high note, and it's followed by not a much higher note. It's only a semitone higher. But some tenors, what they do, there is a pause, que le destin, la mise la. That is the post-destin, pause, la mise la. But there are some tenors that like to make a legato between this ton and la mise la. I think that is effective again, but I also think that it really depends on how nicely or how careful the tenor is when he sings that. Que le destin la mise la sur mon chemin. And now, after having said, how is it possible? Why had you to cross my way? Then now it is not only piano. Maestro Bizet now asks pianissimo. Pianissimo. Even lower volume. So the tenor shouldn't be singing this loud. I am insisting this very much because now people are used to listening to this always from forte to fortissimo, with very few occasions of going to piano, but only because it's easier and it's much more of a fan service to sing everything out loud, which goes against the spirit of the aria. So having clarified that, now it is requested a pianissimo, double P. Puis je m'accusais de blasphème. Look at this. Je m'accusais de blasphème. Et je ne sentais moi-même, et je ne sentais qu'un seul désir, un seul espoir, te revoir, oh Carmen. Oui, te revoir. Because we are coming from, I'm cursing you, why did you have to cross my path? Pianissimo. Puis je m'accusais de blasphème, et je ne sentais en moi-même, je ne sentais qu'un seul désir. Un seul désir, un seul espoir. Before we go to the next phrase, because we go back to tempo uno, notice how it has evolved so far in 3 times. Slow, la fleur que tu m'avais jetée. Then a little faster. Et pendant le sort entier, ce monsieur fermant mes paupières. Then going to a little poco animato. Je me prenais à te maudire, à te détester, à me dire pourquoi faut-il que le destin l'ait mis là sur mon chemin. And little slow, je m'accusais de blasphème, et je ne sentais en moi-même. But then faster, je ne sentais qu'un seul désir, un seul désir, un seul espoir. Because after having cursed her name, I say, now I am accusing myself. Why am I being blasphemous? Because now in my heart I only feel one single desire, one single desire, just one hope. Carmen, te revoir. Carmen, to see you again. My only hope, my only desire is to see you again. Yes, oui, te revoir. Si, yes, to see you again. Car tu n'avais eu qu'à paraître, qu'à jeter un regard sur moi pour t'emparer de tout mon être. Oh ma Carmen, et j'étais une seule chose à toi, Carmen, je t'aime. That final part is the one that is going to have some higher notes from an A flat up to a sharp. Several more than once it's going to the singer, no, from G to an A, the singer is going to be requested to be singing over time. But listen, there is only one forte, and then there is a piano, and then again there is a piano, and there is a pianissimo. Maestro Bizet does not want the tenor to go just, again, as in our favorite example, is not Radames. Por ti rivengo mia dolce Aida, te revoir, oh Carmen, oui, te revoir, quand tu ne venais enamorar. It is not that. That is not Don José. The psychology of Don José is this moving from desire, obsession, to trying to control himself and calm, and then again with these sudden bursts of emotion, but trying to fall in control again. That's what this aria is about. Ups and downs in the control and losing control for Don José. So, Carmen. Here, what would be very nice, because unfortunately singers and now public think, if the singer is singing out loud, then he's feeling it for real. His emotions are for real. No, that is usually the opposite. When the singer is empty, he's trying to fill it out with volume. What he has to do is to project it with his voice. We have to feel that emotion of distress in his voice, not in the volume. The volume is only a masquerade. The tenor has to be able to portray that sensation of being defeated, of being obsessed, of being not able to control himself, and that has to be shown in the voice when he has to sing in the piano volume, not loud. Shouting out loud does not mean effective convey of emotion. That just proves poor taste on the singer and a poor taste on the side of the public, because he just wants to listen to singers yelling. And that is not Don José, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, Don José is usually sung by a lyrical tenor with a very well-developed voice, or better, spinto tenor, because the complete opera is heavy. So a lyrical tenor may run out of gas before ending the second act, and will not be able to make it with the final duet with Carmen. And this aria is better for a spinto, because he will be better able to manage the emotions without losing or without being tired, but emphasizing these bursts of emotion, going te revoir, oh Carmen, oui, te revoir, car tu n'avais qu'à paraître, que j'étais un regard sur moi, pour t'emparer de tout mon être. Oh, ma Carmen, j'étais toujours à toi is ascending, even if it is not really a scale in the sense that there is a ligatura between each of the notes. It is in fact an ascending scale, but it is not meant to be legato, but it has to be done with double P, pianissimo. But before we go to that pianissimo, let's go back to the words. So, my espoir is my hopes. The only thing that I am living for is to see you again. Oui, te revoir, car tu n'avais eu qu'apparaître. Because all you had to do is to appear before my eyes and cast a single glance at me. And with only having done that, you took control of my soul. Oh, ma Carmen! That he says, oh, ma Carmen. Notice he says, ma Carmen, my Carmen. He's already taken for granted that Carmen is his. But remember that Carmen, in her presentation aria, has told us l'amour est un oiseau rebelle qu'on ne peut jamais apprivoiser. Love is an emotion and is a bird that you can never really catch for yourself. We know that Carmen will never really be his Carmen, but for Don Jose, he thinks it is his Carmen, which will not be, and that's why the opera will end the way it will end. And so, just trying to summarize how this aria has evolved, starting. La fleur que tu m'avais jetée dans ma prison, à l'île Roche, et pendant des sorts entiers sur mes cieux, sur ma libre dans la nuit je te voyais. And then control, Maestro Bizet tells you control yourself. You can rush a little, but control yourself. Je me prenais à te maudire, à te détester, à me dire pourquoi faut-il. So you have cursed her, then you call yourself a blasphemous. Je m'accusais de blasphème et je ne sentais en moi-même, je ne sentais qu'un seul désir, un seul désir, un seul espoir. Then gaining a little in the drama, but still in control, only allowed for a short time. Forte, te revoir, oh Carmen, oui, te revoir, car tu n'avais eu qu'apparaître, car j'étais en regard sur moi. Pourtant parler de te mon être. Oh, ma Carmen! Remember that I was telling you that it's better if the singer shows the emotion by means of his voice, not by means of yelling, shouting out loud, oh, ma Carmen! That's horrible, that's vulgar, that's poor taste. Oh, ma Carmen! J'étais une chose à toi. But remember, I was telling you before the toi, because everybody is expecting that note. It is done in double P, which means pianissimo, which also, as we have explained in previous programs, is sort of a contradiction because higher notes take higher volume. So basically, and it is rallentando. J'étais une chose à toi. Maestro Bizet is telling you, don't rush, don't overdo with the volume, because it is not Radames again. Por ti rimango mia dolce Aida, je sono la chose à toi. Carmen, it is not that. It is Maestro Bizet is there to refrain the singer, because if you are lost in yourself, as this was in Il Lamento di Federico, for Federico, who knew he could no longer live without l'Arlesiana, Don José feels now that he cannot live without Carmen because he says, Et j'étais une chose à toi. And now I am only living for you. J'étais une chose à toi. Carmen, again in double P, sempre double P, Maestro Bizet says, sempre double P, don't exaggerate. Carmen, je t'aime. Of course, how the tenor is, if he has not exaggerated in the volume, in the yelling and everything, he should have enough breath to keep, because even though there is not a calderone for je t'aime, for jetée, the first syllable, there is a crescendo and then a diminuendo, which gives you the opportunity, or gives the tenor, assuming he has a good breath control, a good management of his diaphragm, he can do je t'aime. The turn, and sometimes the tenor can make a pause to catch some breath. Je t'aime. Just before the quick breathing. And I think that if he diminishes it correctly, many people will not notice that he's catching air, because he's je t'aime. But if he's overdoing the volume, je t'aime, it even sounds weird, and it is not written like that. So now you know, if you listen to a version of Don José singing everything out loud, most likely you are listening to a fan service version of La fleur que tu m'avais jetée, which, as you can see, it is a very complicated aria in the sense that it has many times when the tenor has to rush to diminish the volume, then touch for a single time for a very short duration, a much higher note, but then falling back in control, then accelerating in some syllables. Je ne sentais al moment, je ne sentais qu'un seul désir, qu'un seul espoir, but has to finish calm and believable. But I know that tenors like to exaggerate, forget about the double P, because double P and singing an A are contraries. You usually cannot do that. So they say, what do I prefer, to do it musically correct or that people are impressed? And 99% of the tenors will do the impressive, forget the double pianissimo, and just go for the impressive. Like a Radames, they forget they are Don José, they become Radames for that phrase, and then want to wrap it up as if they were Radames again in Je t'aime. But that is a very horrible way of wrapping up this aria from my perspective. But well, so hope you enjoyed today's program, and you feel like Don José feels completely lost in the infatuation for the most famous gypsy of the opera, Carmen.
You can follow our channel for the latest updates and more content. Opera We Love Singing, in just one word. Link in the description of the episode.